Hello everyone, welcome to Cryptotexty Talk show. Today our guest is Roman Skaskiw, the promoter of EOS cryptocurrency, EOS blockchain platform, which would be our main topic to discuss today, and also a writer, entrepreneur and veteran. Hello Roman, how are you today?
I'm great, thank you for having me.
EOS platform is a very trending topic now. I think everyone who follows blockchain and cryptocurrency news are aware of it, and it's good to have a discussion on it, because I heard about EOS maybe almost when it's started, and what's interesting that they are doing ICO for 1 year.
Yes.
So they collect money and it's still going on.
That's right, yeah.
Why was this decision taken, and why for so long time? I know that 1st June they should launch a platform which is planned, and already testnet is launched. So can you tell maybe your experience with testnet, if you already used it, and why the ICO is going for the year, for 1 year?
Yep, well again, thank you for having me. Happy to be here to talk about EOS. I think the fact that the ICO is going for a year sort of exemplifies, it's typical how EOS really thinks a lot of things through. A problem that a lot of cryptocurrencies have is that they're dominated by a small amount of people who own a huge amount of them. And when you're trying to be EOS, which is often compared to an operating system, it's a platform for building other applications, you want to be very certain that it's not controlled by a small number of people who could have ulterior motives or have a really short time horizon and be looking to dump the EOS tokens. So by ensuring that it goes for a year, like anybody who wants EOS will have the chance to get them. I think that was the primary reason.
Yeah, also because sometimes after the ICO, some people, investors, they expect like the price for token or crypto to increase like 10 times or even more.
We're all spoiled.
What was the price for EOS in the beginning, and what is it right now? Right now, I think EOS is something like $5.
Right, between $5–6 as of this morning. I don't know what it was in the beginning. I think it was pennies. I think it was less than $1 before the whole markets went crazy at the end of December and in early January. Yeah, so are we in a bubble? We are in a bubble in the sense that a lot of people made a lot of money with very little effort, and they do have that irrational exuberance and will expect to make more money with as little work. But we're not in a bubble in the sense that there's no underlying value. In fact, there is a huge amount of underlying value. Things that were not possible are becoming possible. As you well know, you're a crypto enthusiast like me. And I think a lot of this technology is going to change the world, and I think EOS is going to be a big part of that, which is why I decided to give it so much of my time.
So you think EOS will kind of destroy Ethereum? Because right now still many projects, they use Ethereum for smart contracts, for doing ICOs, for transactions, but the EOS say that first of all there would be it would work faster, and secondly there would be like no transaction fees. And I can believe it because the previous project of CTO of EOS and Block One company, which is building in EOS, Dan Larimer, he made Steemit, and Steemit is a great social network which I'm using myself, and it has like no transaction fees. So I think if he already did this project, he'll implement this in EOS. So what's your opinion? Will EOS like really destroy Ethereum in competition?
There was just a very cordial interaction between Vitaly and Dan. Yeah, and I wanna keep it cordial and not talk about destruction. I think EOS will be a better platform for decentralized applications than Ethereum. I think Ethereum will have its place, perhaps for the launch of ICOs. That's sort of very well-trodden territory. and other prospective ICO launches can sort of follow that path without bearing too much risk of uncertainty. EOS, I think EOS is a masterpiece of incentive structuring. A lot of lessons were learned on Dan Larimer's previous projects. You mentioned Steemit. There's also BitShares, which Dan built in 2014 in a response to the collapse of Mt. Gox. Mt. Gox was a big centralized exchange in Japan, and it collapsed, and a lot of people lost a lot of money. So Dan, you know, very ambitious, and the fact that he accomplished it, it's a great sign. He was like, well, I'll build a decentralized exchange. This is a problem, let's build a decentralized exchange, and he did it, and it works beautifully. And I think he took a lot of lessons from there to Steemit, and now I think he's taking a lot of lessons from Steemit to a very general platform called EOS, on top of which other software developers or teams of software developers can build applications of similar complexity. EOS is compared to an operating system, so it's not an application in itself, it's sort of a platform for other applications, and I think it's going to be beautiful. You mentioned one thing, no transaction fees. I think that's a really big limiting factor for Ethereum. In Ethereum, every time you want to interact with a smart contract, you have to pay what they call gas. Yeah. So imagine something like Steemit. For those of you who don't know, Steemit is a social network, and it's awesome. You can use Steemit and never know that it's blockchain technology. It sort of feels like just another social network, except that your password is really long and impossible to remember. But so if you were doing something like Steemit on Ethereum, you would need to pay for every interaction, for every comment, for every post. You need to pay a little bit of gas. I think for the types of applications that get wide use, that's sort of a non-starter. So Ethereum has a really different and sort of insightful, in my opinion, structure, whereas nobody pays for those interactions, but the owner of the application needs to reserve a bunch of tokens to let other people use them. By reserving tokens, you're sort of reserving bandwidth on the EOS.
And what would be the amount of
operating
tokens?
system?
Is it already decided, or it will be known later, or it will depend from the project?
Well, all the applications are competing with each other for bandwidth. There's bandwidth, processing power, memory, and storage. And when you launch an application, you say, I'm reserving this much, I'm reserving this much. So those are minimums. So for the first year or two, when there aren't that many dApps running on EOS, I think we may not encounter those minimums at all. We may have all the bandwidth we want. But as it gets more popular, the short answer is I don't know how much it'll take. But it's a fascinating model. And since they have a half-second block time, and since the people who are producing blocks look like they're ready, willing, and able to evolve into full-blown data centers, I think the throughput is going to be awesome. So I think we will be able to have the equivalent of, you know, Facebook or Twitter's running on EOS without creating lag.
Yeah, that's actually very important, because Steemit, which we talked about, it took its place in the niche of blogging, but it's social network, but more like a blogging platform. Mm-hmm. Of course, it's possible to interact there also in a way in a chat. There is like Steemit chat, which is also connected, and on Steemit there are also many other applications built, but still it didn't win the competition with existing sites and existing platform. Even like it seemed that Reddit, Medium, yep, they are holding also bigger part. So do you think it really will be possible that some social network like Facebook and I don't know, Instagram and YouTube can be built on EOS?
Yeah, I mean, okay, so Steemit didn't take over, but it's not. It has its place. There's a lot of great, you know, I read Steemit probably every day, or its alternate front end, busy.org. Did you know that you have two front ends operating from the same blockchain? So really cool stuff is possible. What was your question?
The thing is that Steam took its niche, but still most of the people, they hang in the Facebook, they use Google as a search platform, they use YouTube.
Right.
There were several tries to make a social network on a blockchain more like a social network, which would have this all the specifications like Facebook, and there were tries to make blockchain YouTube, but it didn't happen. Even now, some people, they are, I see they worry about Google and Facebook banning this crypto ads, ICO ads. But there is like another thought that why do we need to worry about it? It's better to develop completely something new, which would be on the blockchain and which would become the next Facebook, next Amazon, next Google. And it's interesting that, do you think EOS would be capable to host these new projects?
Yeah, I think they'll be fully capable. I think the fact that Steemit isn't bigger than Facebook, I don't think that's a very meaningful indicator. It's only been 2 years, and they don't have to be bigger. They proved that it's viable. The Steemit blockchain is much bigger and more active than Bitcoin and Ethereum put together. So they've proven that you can handle the throughput and that you can have such a big complex community. And it's still early. I do sort of have one concern. I think communities don't often make sort of bold decisions, So I do have a concern about governance. I mean, you could structure your governance however you want on new dApp applications, but existing ones, Steemit and BitShares, where funds are allocated by vote, I am a little bit concerned that they don't have a united vision, because they don't have one guy like a Steve Jobs deciding what the product should look like. So that I'm watching, and with this question in mind, can a dApp structured the way that Steemit and BitShares are structured make sort of the bold decisions towards a unified vision of how the product will work? Now, that's not necessarily a limitation of EOS, because you could structure your governance however you want. You can structure it like a monarchy, maybe an elected monarchy, or you could structure it where funds are allocated democratically, like a Athenian democracy. But it's great that we can talk about these governance structures. It's an example of, this is what I tell my crypto skeptic friends, things that were not possible before are now possible.
And maybe you can tell more about EOS governance structure, how it will go. As I know, you are applying to be a block producer, yes?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
What's this role?
All right, first I'll explain block producers, and then I'll speak a little bit about governance. So we understand Bitcoin miners. Bitcoin mining is the worldwide competition to produce blocks on the Bitcoin blockchain. The node that produces the blocks is the one that wins a huge worldwide math contest on who can most quickly solve hash 256 algorithms. So it's a little bit wasteful in the sense that a lot of computing power goes towards all the nodes that lost this competition, which happens every 10 minutes in Bitcoin. The way Dan Larimer got such enormous throughput of functionality on Steemit and on BitShares was by getting rid of this math competition known as proof of work and substituting what he calls delegated proof of stake. The owners of tokens cast votes, and the top 21 in this case, you can make it whatever you want, but in EOS and in Steem, I'm not sure what it is in BitShares, it's the top 21 nodes produce blocks in sort of a very orderly turn-by-turn way. So we look how the votes are cast. The node that has the most votes produces 6 blocks. After that, the node that has the next most votes produces 6 blocks, and it goes after that. So it's very efficient. It's very orderly, and it seems to give us a very fast and responsive blockchain. like I said, you can use Steem it and never know that it's blockchain technology.
Yeah, and I think many people they do not know about it. Or maybe they know, but they do not notice. They just post content, and if your content is good enough,
Yes.
of course there are some specifications, because from my experience, if you write about some like travel, crypto related, blockchain or science, your chances to get like good amount of votes and good amount of money is higher. Also, if you have already your community, your friends, or if you move to Steem it with your friends and you'll upvote each other and correspond,
Yes,
it's also bigger chance that you can become popular.
You also have Steem Power, which, so Steem is money. Steem inflates, and the newly created money goes to comments and goes to popular articles and stuff like that. But there's also Steem Power, and that gives you influence over money. So if you have a lot of Steem Power and you vote for an article, the author of that article will get more than if you did the same thing with little Steem Power. So a lot of people just accumulate a lot of Steem Power and vote for their own content.
Yeah, it happens, but it's also in order to get a lot of Steem Power, you need to either invest a lot of Steem,
right.
so like
right.
Invest, I know, hundreds of dollars, if not thousands, like to get a good big amount of power, or you need to grow your account naturally. So
right.
To get for upvotes, because each post is divided like in 50% goes to US SBD, Steem currency, and 50 as
right.
power. Or you can choose that everything would go as power. And also there is like this delegation of power. Some people, they delegate, and actually it's like investment idea that you delegate power and you get some returns from your power. But some delegate in order to have these big influencers who vote people, and they vote vote to appreciate, to qualify for good content. And that's why, from my experience, like Steem it is a really complex system, because if you just copy-paste some content, you won't be popular.
Right.
Even if you copy-paste like the best content, it will be, and there are even bots which detect this. If you are just posting somebody else's content, you might be actually not banned, but downvoted. There is also such thing that by flagging you can...
Yeah, some people resent that. I think if you do it in the right way, it might be appreciated, because then you're just an effective curator as long as you're transparent. But I think the sort of important thing for people who are not yet in the crypto space is that you can criticize the way incentives are structured, but the fact that incentives are structured and that we can talk about how we can tweak the incentives, like that's a new thing. This is something that wasn't possible just a few years ago. So we're used to software controlling information, but now we have software controlling value. So the fact that, yeah, this conversation is sort of indicative of how we have software dictating the rules of value, how value is transferred, and I think we're just scratching the surface of what's possible.
And actually, why I advise Steem it to some of my friends who write or produce content and they are not yet in the crypto area, because it's a good and easy way to the crypto area, crypto world. So you earn some SBD or Steem. You can exchange it and change to any crypto you want, like easy in seconds. And the voting, we already discussed how voting works on Steem. How in the EOS it would look like? Would the EOS be also so user-friendly?
Well, the short answer is no. EOS is less user-friendly because EOS is not an application. It's more like an operating system. So it's the tools that will let hundreds and thousands of other software developers build things like Steem without putting in the same investment and doing something as complex as Steem it. So it's the platform on top of which you can build applications, and I think that's awesome. The voting, so if you hold EOS tokens, you can reserve them. And one reason why you might want to reserve them is to vote for block producers. So you reserve them for 3 days, and in those 3 days, all you can do is vote and say, I want these block producers producing votes. If you've launched an application on top of EOS, you will need to reserve tokens, to reserve storage space on the servers of all the block producers, or to reserve memory, or to reserve bandwidth and processing power.
And maybe another reason to reserve the tokens and keep tokens is proof of stake. Yes, so there will be a proof of stake algorithm.
Yeah, you can delegate it as well. I do not think the delegation is going to be active in the version that launches in June. Yeah, but let's talk about that, because this may be the beginning of a revolution as well. You don't have to spend money to make transactions as you do in Ethereum. You just reserve tokens. Let's say I'm launching a big business application on EOS. I need to have a bunch of tokens reserved to make this business application run smoothly. If it turns out that I'm shutting it down for whatever reason, I give the tokens back. So I haven't really spent money. I'm just reserving stuff. I've been thinking a lot in the past few weeks whether this can replace the Saas model. The way software was purchased has evolved. First, you would go to the store and buy a piece of plastic that had software on it. After that, you might download software and buy a license. And then it was that, what was that company? Salesforce. Salesforce initiated what I think is rightly called the Saas revolution. You're no longer buying a license for software or putting it on a piece of plastic, which is the model of owning things. They introduced the model of renting a service, so software as a service. You pay every month. So I've been putting a lot of thought into, can the Saas model be replaced by sort of this token rental model, where if I want to use software, I just buy some tokens, hold those tokens while I'm using the software, and then I can sell them back or sell them on the open market. I think this crypto revolution might change Saas forever. One thing that's already happening is that people are having their own money. Organizations and businesses have their own money. An example is the Ukrainian group Hacken. They're a group of reputable white hat hackers who have done work before and are known in the software security space. And they just said, we're an organization. If you want us to provide you this security service, we insist that you pay us in our own money. Pay us in Hacken tokens. So money is private again. That's not a new thing. In America in 1860, there were more than 6,000 currencies. Churches had their own currencies. Businesses had their own currencies. Regions had their own currencies. We're 3 generations removed from that time, and now it's difficult for us to even imagine that currency isn't issued by the government. But private currency used to be a thing. We're returning to that. Hacken is an example. One thing that private currency does in the crypto space is that it sort of blends the role of investor, businessman, and user. So let's say you're a content producer and you insist on getting paid in your own money that you produce, Andriy tokens. So if I want to invest in you because I think the demand for Andriy tokens will go up, I can just buy a bunch of your money, sit on it, and then trade it on the open market. So it makes, if I'm a customer of yours, I will need to buy your money anyway. And if I'm a holder of your tokens, I will have an interest in being an auditor and being a promoter. So I think the role of investor, business partner, and customer are all getting blended. And I think replacing a Saas model with some kind of tokenization model can take advantage of that. It also creates additional risks. Like if the demand for your money suddenly drops, you might be in trouble. You might have to do a lot of inflation to pay for ongoing development.
Yeah, interesting that you mentioned Hacken. I was following the interview and I saw some of the team members in Kiev in presentation. I think maybe I'll need to invite some of their board for the Cryptotexty Talk show to speak about. And about tokenization, it's really a big process going on because more and more projects and businesses, they apply tokenization to more like traditional areas of businesses. And on some platforms, it's possible to launch own tokens like very easily and with a small fee. On EOS, would it be possible also to launch, for example, like new way of token?
Yeah, I'm sure.
And what would be the approximate cost and the level of complexity? Because, for example, to start a new project, to do an ICO or some token sale, anyway, it requires money and time and technical skills, a team. And if it's like some small project of content producer, for example, one content producer, one website or charity foundation, they do not need such a complexity and complex work. They just need to create tokens and make them available to buy.
Yeah.
So in a way, people would buy in tokens and funding these projects and would receive, as you mentioned, Andrei tokens or Roman tokens.
I think creating your own tokens is a trivially simple use case, and I think doing it on EOS, it'll be free. I mean, you may have to pay for some technical skill to do it. If you want your tokens to function very quickly, you may need to reserve some EOS, and then when your tokens get sent on the EOS network, it'll check to see how much you have in reserve, especially if you want them sent according to some rules, like if you want to okay, let's say with every sending you take some tiny % of the token and destroy it. I think that's something that Steemit does, or maybe BitShares. So if you want to operate under some rules, then you're putting a little processing burden on the EOS network, and for that to go quickly, you may need to reserve some EOS, but it's such a trivially simple use case that it may not be required. However, if all you're doing is issuing your own money, which will operate under a handful of inflation and deflation rules, I think you can do that on any platform. You could do it on Waves, on Ethereum, although in Ethereum there may be a higher fee for sending.
In Ethereum, there should be like some cost.
Yeah.
Right, and also the gas price, and that's why I think, and why it seems that EOS would be better, because like no transaction fees.
Right.
For big projects, and even big projects which I checked, they sometimes use Ethereum as a way to start smart contracts to collect money, but then they are developing either their own blockchain or check for other opportunities.
Right. That's exactly what EOS is doing. Right now, EOS is an Ethereum token. One thing that has scared many potential EOS investors is that Block One, the company developing EOS software, is very clear that they do not promise you anything. If you buy the EOS token, which is an Ethereum token, you are not guaranteed anything at all. And I think that is rightly reason for concern by many investors. From my perspective, the reasons they're doing it are absolutely clear. Block One is able to say, we are writing open source software that anybody can use to run something that resembles a stock exchange. Right? If they were saying that, we're selling shares of a stock exchange, and then you're going to become a benefactor of that stock exchange, like that just gives them a whole slew of legal problems. So to me, the reasoning seems clear enough.
So Roman, as the candidate for the block producer you are running, you need to have some amount of tokens, or you need to have, I don't know, some reputation in the EOS community. How it's like, how is the process is going on, and how maybe our viewers, our audience can support you. What can we do? And to support, we need also to have some, I know, significant amount of EOS. We need to reserve these tokens.
I guess I'm primarily interested in growing the community. I think there's a slew of opportunities being created. I think a lot of applications and businesses are going to be moving onto the EOS ecosystem, and there's a lot of work to be done. So Ukraine is such a hot spot for tech development. I think a lot of guys could do very well for themselves if they start learning EOS and be early EOS developers. The block producer thing, as we explained, block producers are determined by votes. If you understand Bitcoin mining, then think of block producers as the equivalent of a Bitcoin miner. and holders of EOS tokens stake their EOS and choose a block producer. Right now, we're the only block producer from, I think, from former Soviet Union. There may have been one other that just entered, but we're there. We launched a popular testnet called the Jungle testnet, so we're connecting a lot of other block producers to EOS and testing it and looking for bugs, and hopefully we do some load testing so that we can better estimate our costs. And the block producer thing is just showing that you're reliable technically, legally, business-wise, and that you're going to support the EOS community. So with that in mind, we've started a translation project. We're going to be translating a lot of EOS content. And we're holding Ukraine's first EOS meeting April 3rd, together with some partners of ours in Unit City. If anyone...
April what date?
April 20th. April 20th.
You already know the place, the time?
Yep, in Unit City, probably 6 p.m. We don't have a website up yet, but you can follow us on Steemit. We are CryptoLions on Steemit, and we'll announce the details of Ukraine's first EOS meetup. It should be good.
I'll put the information below the video, the link to your Steemit account, and also we'll announce closer to the date. We'll announce in our Cryptotexty Telegram group.
Great, because, appreciate that.
We as a website and platform, we also aim to promote blockchain and cryptocurrency in Ukraine and to get more people into this, and such events as the EOS Meetup will need to cover.
Yeah, I think EOS and other similar technologies, they can be so good for Ukraine where we're dealing with so much corruption, because really look at the mission of EOS as it's articulated by Block One. It's not like make money or build awesome applications. Their mission is life, liberty, and property. So they really are civic minded. And I think in a place like Ukraine or any post-communist society that's struggling with corruption, I think it can be so helpful to build sort of parallel institutions to secure your wealth, to maybe create mutual aid societies. That's a really hot idea in the EOS community. So mutual aid societies, instead of looking for insurance from the state, which is often expensive and ineffective, communities can form to sort of provide insurance to each other. There's a lot. This is why so many people in the EOS ecosystem or in crypto in general are so passionate, because they see more effective institutions, less corruption, stronger property rights. It can be very big.
And also another area that you mentioned, EOS developers. In Ukraine and Kiev, as you know, there are many developers, yes. And more developers, they start to focus on the blockchain. Actually, I spoke with different development companies, groups in Kiev, and there is a big demand for the developers, even on the purely in Ukrainian market, and not counting the overall international market. There is big demand and not so many developers. And for Ethereum, there exists this language Solidity for smart contracts. What would it be for EOS? And if the EOS has such a big perspectives, well, not so much time left till June, so maybe developers who are thinking about what to specialize, maybe they can start exploring EOS and specializing in EOS system, and then of course they can charge more, have higher rates, or maybe even the whole new companies can arise who will specialize in EOS development.
I think that's going to happen. So EOS smart contracts can be written in anything that compiles to WebAssembly, probably C++, because they have the best library for WebAssembly from what I understand.
So for potential perspective EOS developers, it's good to know C++.
Yep.
Something else?
Or
just general?
Well, whatever you can get to compile in WebAssembly, but especially with the early version of EOS, whatever gets the thing that's going to get released in June, C++ is the way to go.
And the Block One company who is building EOS, What can you tell about it? I know the technical CTO is Dan Larimer,
Yep.
who we already mentioned. But what's about their CEO, and isn't it like also a point of centralization that one company is building it, how it's perceived?
It is a point of centralization. Yeah, and that's a criticism that has been leveled. What else? Vitalik of Ethereum has criticized EOS for the possibility of cartels being created. He says it's not fully decentralized. It relies on these 21 block producers out of a pool of over 100 who you can vote for. Actually, the pool is unlimited. And I think both those criticisms are valid, but there's no answer to the question compared to what. I think it's the best we have. The important thing is not who's creating the software, but the token, or let me qualify that. It's more important how far the tokens are distributed than who's producing the software, and by all accounts, EOS's token distribution is far more distributed than any of the other top 10 cryptocurrencies. So I think the signs are generally positive. Also, it's open source software. So if you want to do the additional work, meaning you don't want to just launch an application that runs on top of EOS, but you want to do the additional work of launching your own blockchain and creating a community of block producers who are going to devote themselves full time to upholding it, you can do that too. And then you can do the token distribution however you want. The existing distribution of Ethereum of ERC20 EOS tokens is simply a suggestion for the initial distribution on the main EOS blockchain that starts June 1st.
So, and the token distribution would end by that time, yes?
Yes, yes.
And for example, now if somebody is interested to get into EOS, what's the better to buy from the official website, take part, or from the from the crypto exchanges? Because I see, for example, on KuCoin there is EOS, and on some other it's possible to buy it this way.
So there are two ways to buy EOS tokens, through the ICO or in the open market. The way the ICO works is that there's an auction every day. People send Ethereum, and then it, proportional to the amount of other Ethereum sent that day, you get EOS tokens. But you asked the question how to get into EOS. So I would say the best way to get into EOS is not necessarily to buy tokens, although you certainly can, but the best way is to learn about its capabilities. For developers, it's absolutely learn to write smart contracts, but for non-developers too, one thing that you're seeing in crypto in generally and in EOS specifically is just the sort of coming together of such a vast array of disciplines. You know, we need lawyers who understand EOS. We need business people who understand EOS so they could sort of reimagine the solutions to business problems on the EOS network. We need people who are concerned about governance to think about how self-help communities or mutual aid societies or insurance can form through EOS. So the best way is just to learn about it. If you're in Kiev or near Kiev, you can come to our conference on April 20th and network with other people.
And also, Dan Larimer is known to be admirer of Austrian School of Economics, yes, and the authors from this group. Is it other people in the EOS community, are they also interested in this economy, and authors like Friedrich von Hayek, Ludwig von Mises?
I'm not sure. I think in all the Telegram chats, people are sort of focused on the work, focused on the technical work of setting up and running the test nets, focusing on the business work of estimating the cost of block producers, which will be non-trivially high. But I do get strong libertarian undertones. And I think you find that in crypto in general. It's sort of a combination of technical geeks and libertarians, sort of a frontier of technology meets this individualism of that libertarianism that comes from libertarianism.
Yeah, and the last question for today, we didn't cover it in the show, but because you are a writer, that would be probably some another topic for another program. But do you plan to write some books, some texts about like crypto? I don't know, either fiction or some technical books.
I'd like to. I have a lot of work to do because I have a lot of things that I want to do before I get to it. I have immediately I have the block producer candidacy, and I have a user assistance startup, and I can't stop thinking about bringing those two together and put my startup on EOS. Yeah, I have a lot of plans to write. It's something that I seem to be good at, but that's going to have to wait because I still have a lot of work in front of me.
Yeah. And your startup, probably you'll be able to launch it this summer when the EOS platform starts working.
I'm thinking of launching it as a regular business and then seeing, just to prove that we have a little bit of product market fit, and seeing if we can get traction, validate the idea, maybe get a little investment after that happens, and then reimagine it on top of EOS. Yeah.
Yeah, great, thanks. So we as a Cryptotexty website and blockchain think tank we consider EOS as one of the most interesting projects which are going on now. So we also invite to our future shows other people from EOS, such as Dan Larimer.
That would be awesome.
Because Kiev is really becoming this cryptocurrency program. I'm sure that cryptocurrency capital, I'm sure that one day, sooner or later, he'll be visiting Kiev, and maybe EOS would create some bigger office here. So thanks for watching. Have a good day.